This video is going to be about planetary debility case studies, and I'm very excited to bring this to you. I want to talk about the archetypal dissonance and evolutionary refinement of planets in fall and detriment. So, within the quantum natal object Q&O, a planet in its detriment, sign opposite of its rulership, or fall, sign opposite its exaltation, doesn't indicate weakness, but archetypal dissonance. The planet's waveform encounters environmental resistance to its natural expression, requiring greater conscious energy to manifest coherently. This resistance is the crucible of mastery. Using the synthesized archetypal language, SAL, we map these placements as high variance probability clouds. The native must navigate a wider spectrum of potential expressions from shadow to genius, with less automatic support from the resonant temporal field, RTF. The following case studies demonstrate how historically significant individuals metabolize these placements, transforming debility into differentiated power. I know that sounds like a mouthful and only a minute in, but this is going to be very big, and I can't wait to share this with you guys. So let's talk about solar debility, the luminary under pressure, and of course we're starting with the sun. And the sun is your vitality, the sun is your strength, the sun is your willpower. So when we have the sun in Libra, it's in its fall. Because Libra wants things to be balanced and harmonious all the time, which of course life is not like that. So for example, we're going to talk about John Lennon, and he was born October 9th, 1940, 1830, Liverpool, UK, with the placement Sun at 16 degrees Libra in the 8th house, square Saturn, trine Neptune. Let's look at this manifestation analysis, and I'll break it down. So the Sun in Libra experiences its fall, and the conscious self, which is the Sun, must assert identity, which is Aries, through the lens of the other, which is Libra. John Lennon's life was a continuous negotiation between radical self-assertion and relational dependency. His songwriting repeatedly thematized the tension between I and we. All you need is love. Imagine. The 8th house placement intensified this. Identity was forged through psychological merger, Yoko Ono, shared resources, and public death rebirth cycles. A shadow expression, chronic indecision, people-pleasing masking, volcanic rage, codependency. In the integrated expression, artistic diplomacy, using fame as a platform for collective healing, transmuting a relational transmuting relational friction into cultural commentary. And our Q&O insight is Saturn squared demanded structural accountability for his relational choices. Neptune's trine allowed dissolution of the ego into universalist art, and the fall became the engine of his humanitarian archetype. So now let's talk about Sun in Aquarius, which is its detriment. There is a difference. So Oprah Winfrey, she was born January 29th, 1954 at 4:30 in Kosciuszko, MS, with the placement being Sun at 8 degrees Aquarius in the 5th house, sextiling Mars, trining Jupiter. So Sun in Aquarius is in its detriment. The solar will to individuate must operate through the collective, the network, the impersonal. Now let's think about Oprah's identity. It's not primarily personal, it's relational and institutional. Her talk show wasn't about Oprah, but about the field she created for other stories. The 5th house placement of creativity, performance allowed her to broadcast this collective-centric identity globally. Let's talk about our shadow expression. Over-identification with the audience, messianic complex, detachment from intimate relationships, integrated expression, creating platforms for mass psychological education, philanthropy structured as systemic intervention, embodying the collective individual. Our Q&O insight is Jupiter trine amplified her capacity to expand others' narratives. Mars sextile gave executive force to her humanitarian networks. The detriment forced her to discover selfhood through service to the many, not despite it. Now we look at our lunar debility, the soul's membrane under stress. Moon in Capricorn, which is its detriment. We're talking about Keanu Reeves. He was born September 2nd, 1964, 15 on the dot. Beirut, Lebanon. Placement, Moon 24 degrees Capricorn in the 6th house, conjunct Saturn, square Pluto. Now, Moon in Capricorn is emotional life under structural compression. I could also say Tom York is a good example. From Radiohead, he has Moon in Capricorn, Sun in Libra. Not sure what his rising sign is, but feelings are not spontaneously expressed, but architected, so often delayed, disciplined, or sublimated into achievement. Keanu Reeves' biography is a catalog of profound loss. He experienced a stillborn daughter, death of a partner, childhood abandonment, and met with stoic grace. The Moon conjunct Saturn in the 6th house creates a somatic signature, emotional regulation through work, service, and bodily mastery. His meticulous physical preparation for action roles. We talk about the shadow expression, emotional repression, premature gravitas, fear of dependency, integrated expression, embodied compassion through action, dignified public mourning that teaches resilience, using status to quietly support cancer research and children's hospitals. Insight on this: Pluto square forced repeated psychological death rebirth cycles, deepening his lunar capacity to hold sorrow without collapse. The detriment matured into a Saturnine lunar wisdom. Feeling isn't but architecture. Now we talk about Moon in Scorpio, which is its fall. We talk about MLK Jr. So Martin Luther King Jr. was born January 15th, 1929 at 12 in Atlanta, Georgia, with Moon at 16 degrees Scorpio in the 1st house, trining Neptune, squaring Pluto. So Moon in Scorpio is the fall of the lunar principle. The receptive, nurturing, fluctuating moon is submerged in the fixed volcanic waters of Scorpio. Emotional security becomes contingent on psychological penetration, shared power, and crises. King's 1st house moon made his feeling nature his public face. His speeches were not rhetorical constructions, but emotional transmissions from the collective unconscious. His trine to Neptune allowed this intensity to dissolve into universal compassion. His square to Pluto forced repeated confrontations with death. The shadow expression is emotional manipulation, a psionic self-conception, attraction to crises. Integrated expression is channeling rage into non-violent confrontation, transforming personal fear into collective courage, and dying for the beloved community. The fall of the Moon in Scorpio produced a man whose emotional body wasn't his own, but the nation's. His lunar function was oracular. He felt what America repressed and spoke it into being. Okay? We're going to get into Mercury. So this is the Logos in exile. We know Mercury is debilitated. It has a detriment and a fall, like the last 2 planets we talked about. Its detriment is Mercury in Sagittarius, and we'll get into why. And then Mercury in Pisces, and I have this placement, so I actually wanted to make this video specifically because I have a debilitated, I actually have debilitated Saturn in Cancer in the 3rd house, and I have a debilitated Mercury in Pisces in the 11th house. So communicating is very sporadic and out there, and I'm interested in astrology, I'm interested in spirituality, I'm interested in becoming a better person, I'm interested in all of these different things that most people in the mundane reality would say, well, that's rubbish because you're not making any profit off of it, or you're not making the proper profit, or making profit the proper way, whatever you want to say. That was just an expression of my Mercury in Pisces right there. All of my videos, you can see this acted out in my Mercury in Pisces, which I was born with. I could never not act like this. So, our mercurial debility, we talk about the Logos in exile. And if you guys could just give me one moment, I'm going to take care of something really quick, because I forgot I have my window open and I need to close it. hopefully this angle isn't too weird. But let's talk about Mercury in Sagittarius, which again is Mercury in its detriment, meaning it doesn't do very good here in whatever terms you're thinking of communication. It's going to be very fast, it's going to be very brash, it's going to be very outrageous, because Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's fast paced. That's what you need to know. But we're going to break it down. So our subject is Winston Churchill, and he was born November 30th, 1874 at 130 Blenheim Palace in the UK, with Mercury at 25 degrees Sagittarius in the third house, conjunct the Sun and squaring Saturn. So Mercury in Sagittarius operates in the sign opposite its rulership, Gemini. Instead of nimble, objective data processing, the mind philosophizes, generalizes, and preaches. Churchill's prose and oratory were not analytic, but mythopoetic. He didn't report facts, he narrated destinies. The square to Saturn disciplined this expansive mental energy into strategic patience. The conjunction to Sun fused his identity with his communication. The shadow expression of this placement is dogmatism, rhetorical grandiosity, resistance to contrary data. Integrated expression, wielding language as a weapon against despair, synthesizing history into prophetic warning, inspiring nations through elevated narrative. And my mother actually, I'm pretty sure, has Mercury in Sagittarius. She was born my mother was born December 1st, and I'm pretty sure she has Mercury in Sagittarius. So, and I can believe it. So Mercury in Pisces, which is myself, as you can clearly see, detriment and fall. We'll talk about Albert Einstein. He was born March 14th, 1879 at 11:30 in Ulm, Germany, with Mercury at 3 degrees Pisces and in the 10th house. Sextile Uranus, trining Saturn. So Mercury in Pisces is both detrimented and fallen, meaning Mercury really is uncomfortable. It is really uncomfortable by how sick this world is and how disgusting the world is. And it doesn't know how to wrap the brain around that. Like everybody else can play pretend and go to their 9 to 5, working for somebody that's not themselves. That's not Mercury in Pisces, I'm telling you. I know. I've been unemployed since 2024, but this is my full-time job now. And I started last year. This day, exactly last year, February 11th of 2025, and now today is February 11th, 2026, and I'm about to be 21 years old. And I'm not going to stop. I love astrology. I will learn as much as I need to learn. I will continue to learn. So Mercury in Pisces is, again, both detrimented and fallen. Okay? So the most extreme mercurial debility. Mercury is the planet of communication. Mercury is the planet of business partnerships. Knowing how to communicate with one another. Mercury in Pisces, well, why do I need you guys when I have me? Why do I need you guys? Why do I need the outside world? And then I get lonely. But people scare me. That's Mercury in Pisces. So, linear logic dissolves. Thought becomes imagistic, intuitive, resonant, and Albert Einstein famously thought in Gedanken experiments, visualized thought experiments, not mathematical chain. His sextile to Uranus gave his intuition revolutionary form. His trine to Saturn grounded oceanic insight in disciplined equations. Shadow expression of this placement, verbal vagueness, escapism into abstraction, difficulty with mundane detail. Integrated expression, seeing physical laws as aesthetic harmonies, communicating complex relativity through accessible metaphors, using diffuse perception to perceive unified field. We're going to go over Venus. We're going to go over Mars. We're going to go over Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Alright. We'll see where we leave off for a second. So we'll talk about Venus really quick. Now, this is the Venerian debility, the bonding principle in crises. So Venus in Scorpio, which is its detriment, we're talking about Sigmund Freud. He was born May 6th, 1856, 1830, Freiburg, Moravia, with Venus at 29 degrees, the anaretic degree, Scorpio, in the 9th house. Opposite Uranus, squaring Saturn. So Venus in Scorpio seeks bonding through depth, crises, and psychological exposure. Freud's theory of libido transferred Venusian attraction from body to psyche. His relationships were intense, possessive, and often ended in rupture. Opposition Uranus. The square to Saturn forced a structural scientific framework onto the erotic chaos he studied. Shadow expression of this is jealousy, control, sexualization of power, and our integrated expression is mapping the economy of desire, transforming personal shadow into clinical methodology. Let's talk about Venus in Virgo really quick, which is its fall. Venus does not like to be in Virgo. So Mother Teresa was born August 26th, 1910, 2100, Skopje, North Macedonia, with Venus at 25 degrees Virgo in the first house, trine Pluto, squaring Mars. So Venus in Virgo is the fall of the goddess. Love expressed not through beauty or pleasure, but through useful service, refinement, and critical care. Mother Teresa's first house Venus made her visible embodiment of this archetype. Love as work, as hygiene, as meticulous attention to the dying. The trine to Pluto allowed the service to access deep transformative power. Square to Mars generated friction with critics and institutional challenges. So the shadow expression of this placement is criticism masquerading as care, loveless duty, and suppression of sensuality. Our integrated expression is sacramentalizing the mundane, dignifying the discarded through precise compassion. In my next video, I'm going to go over Mars, debilitated and fallen, Jupiter, debilitated and fallen, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Hope to see you there with peace and love. Subscribe, comment, like. It's been real.